It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and we're at the midway point of 2002, 4th of July weekend. We got three big new releases to look at here, and let's start off with the biggest new release of them all, and that is Men in Black 2. So, of course, Men in Black 2 is the sequel to the 1997 movie, which helped to launch Will Smith as the superstar that he is today. Uh, he's back as Agent J, who has to bring back Agent K, played by Tommy Lee Jones, back from retirement, when the evil Colothian Serlina, played here by Laura Flynn Boyle, comes to Earth looking for the Light of Zartha, a source of great power that will destroy the entire Earth if it doesn't leave the planet soon. And it's interesting how this and Ghostbusters kind of share the same kind of link. I mean, this is a sequel that's coming 5 years after the original film, just like how Ghostbusters had its sequel 5 years after the original film. It had a TV series in the middle of the show's run, which was seen by many as a successful show and a really good show for the time. And here's the sequel where you have a lot of the same problems that Ghostbusters 2 had, pretty much in this movie here. Just replace the whole thing with the ghosts and all that, and except this time just replace it with aliens, and it's pretty much the same movie. It's just the whole thing is just the first movie all over again. Like, the plot is very much the same as the first film, except a lot of the situations and setups very similar to the first movie, except it just feels like they're repeating themselves. And they also retcon a lot of stuff in this movie to bring these people back. Like, Tommy Lee Jones' wife has left him for no reason. Linda Fiorentino wanted to go back to the funeral home, to the morgue, I guess. So Jay took care of that, which it kind of makes Jay look like an asshole in this, because like every time he tries to get a new partner, he always, uses the what do you call it? The memory wiper, and basically just uses it to take these partners that he's had out of commission. I mean, like, they had Patrick Warburton in the beginning of the movie, which Patrick Warburton is an amazing comedic actor, and you think there's going to be a lot of possibilities with him. He's just gone after the first 5 minutes. Just like, way to waste that actor. I mean, this is like, there are so many elements of this movie that just don't make a whole lot of sense. And basically, like I said, it retcons everything from the first movie and kind of regresses everybody down to where they kind of were in the last film, which is a problem with a lot of sequels that basically repeat themselves. They get dumber as the sequels keep going. It's just like especially in this case here, where it's just like nobody really progresses in this movie compared to the end of the last movie. I mean, the last movie ended on a good note, and like, you could have continued all those aspects that were set up in the first movie. Like, you could have brought back Linda Fiorentino. You could have had more with Patrick Warburton in there. You could have even had a good villain too, because let me tell you something. This is one of the worst and lamest villains you'll ever see. I'm sorry. Laura Flynn Boyle, like, God help her, she's a great actress and all, but she's terrible in the movie. Like, she spends most of the movie in scantily clad lingerie, to reclaim the Light of Zartha and conquer the galaxy. And you know what? It's funny, because Johnny Knoxville is a more memorable villain, and he was the sidekick. He didn't really do anything that evil, but he was just there to be the comic relief, but he still did more memorable things in this movie than Serlina did. She was just a bland villain with no real motivation and just wants to conquer the galaxy, just like the Bug in the first movie, except the Bug in the first movie was a cool look, and, like, even Rosario Dawson's character in this movie doesn't really add a whole lot to it. Just like a cheap love interest for Jay, and the twist with her at the end really does not make a whole lot of sense. Like, that's really where you're going with this whole thing. It's just like, it sets up good ideas too. Like, this is stuff that was originally set up in the animated series, which actually I think had ended around this point. So I don't know if the movie took from the animated series or what, but like, the animated series did the storyline that was setting up at the beginning of the film much better and set it up way more than the movie actually did, which again kind of proves my theory that animation kicks the ever-living crap out of live action. And whatever you people out there want to admit it or not, that's the honest truth. With that said, there are a couple of things about Men in Black 2 that do still work. You still got the good chemistry between Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith. That still works pretty well. There are still a lot of funny moments here and there. Some good visuals overall. I mean, the visuals still hold up nicely. But this is definitely a lackluster film compared to the first movie. And if I'm comparing this to Ghostbusters 2, I think I'd rather watch Ghostbusters 2 again, because Ghostbusters 2 at least had a lot of cool things happening in there. I mean, come on. Like, the Statue of Liberty coming to life and actually being a thing that helps them save the day at the end. Like, yeah, it's basically stay put from the first movie, but you know what? Ivan Reitman at least took some time and effort to actually put some more effort into that than they did with the ending of this movie here. Like, it does not feel like a movie that feels like it's on the same wavelength as the first movie, which luckily they did bring it around a little bit towards the end with Men in Black 3, kind of setting up the end of this nice trilogy with a much better film. Like, Men in Black 3 is by far the best of the sequels, and we're just going to pretend Men in Black International doesn't exist because it's just pure garbage. But like I said, Men in Black 3 is the one where it really puts the series back on a better note and ends the trilogy on a better note. Men in Black 2 definitely is the weakest of the three films, but still some decent elements here and there where I can't say that it's a terrible movie. Stuff that I would say that it's just okay for what it is, but it really is a huge, major misfire compared to the first film. A lot of the same problems with Ghostbusters 2, and like I said, I'd rather watch Ghostbusters 2 again than Men in Black 2, but this, I mean, it's not the worst, but it certainly pales in comparison to the first movie easily. So yeah, take that for what you will. So with that said, let's move on to the next movie, and that is Little Bow Wow and Like Mike. Alright, so Like Mike is kind of similar to Space Jam, except it's coming towards the tail end of Michael Jordan's career. I mean, he had retired from the Chicago Bulls only 3 years prior to this, but he actually came back to play with the Washington Wizards just the year before, and this was kind of right in the middle of that. And the story here, as you can tell, the film follows an orphan played by Lil Bow Wow who gets basketball talents after finding an old pair of old sneakers that belonged to Michael Jordan. And the title, Like Mike, is of course a reference to the Gatorade commercials from the 90s going like, if I could be like Mike, like... But I do find it funny that the NBA teams in this movie, they're all legitimate NBA teams except the Los Angeles Clippers are called the Los Angeles Knights. I don't know why every other team is the same team that you would see in real life, but the Los Angeles Clippers, they didn't want anything to do with this movie for some reason, which is reasons that are beyond me, but you would think that this is one of those movies where you would think that it's kind of a movie that's very, kind of like a similarity to something like, Thunderstruck, like that terrible Kevin Durant movie, which, I mean, that's a bad movie, but you think it's going to be something similar to this, and then you watch it and it's just kind of like, you know what? For what you had to work with, for the story you had to work with here, you actually got more out of this than I thought you would have ever done. Because honestly, I remember seeing this movie as a kid, and I was just kind of like, that was kind of fun. But as a grown-up, but watching it again recently, yeah, it definitely still kind of holds up after all these years. Like, it's a very good, fun film. Like, it's a fun concept. I mean, any kid growing up when Michael Jordan was at his peak wants to be like Michael Jordan on the basketball field. I know I wanted to do that. I mean, that's why I took the Saturday morning basketball course during elementary school, which didn't last very long. But yeah, I've always wanted to be like. I think everyone wants to be like Michael Jordan on the basketball field, and that's why I still think that he still is the greatest NBA player we ever had. Like, LeBron James is right up there, but I'm sorry, if I had to choose between those two, it's definitely Michael Jordan. And this film kind of worked for me because of that, and I do like the fact that, you know how Air talked about the whole tried to tell the story of Michael Jordan without showing Michael Jordan in there, and everyone was wondering how that was going to work. Kind of similar things here. He's not in the movie, even though the whole thing is like, the whole thing is basically centered around his shoes, and like it's a decent film. Like, it's not a great film by any means necessary, but it's a film that gives you so much more than you think you're going to get to it. And the NBA players they get in here, they are actually doing a pretty good, decent acting job here. You got a really good cast, and it also includes Morris Chestnut, Stuart Little's Jonathan Nicki, Robert Forster, Crispin Glover, Eugene Levy. If there's any one person in the weakest part of the movie, it is kind of Crispin Glover, who kind of plays sort of the antagonist, but also like he's not like a straight up villain overall, but it's just kind of like he's just there for. Like, he's not terrible, but he definitely feels like the weak link in this decently put together cast. The film overall is very well done. It's a movie that you really do not expect to see coming from a mile away, but for anyone that grew up loving the NBA around that time and loving Michael Jordan, this is definitely a film that fits right up their alley. And even as a kid looking back on it, it still holds up. And as an adult looking back on it now, it still holds up for the most part. It's still a fun film. It's still a really enjoyable film. I do recommend checking it out. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. It's definitely worth it if you go into it on a good note. I also find it kind of amusing. I'm looking at the people who wrote the script for this. Guess what their first names are? Michael, Elliot, and Jordan Moffat. Michael Jordan. So, take that for what you will. So, that's Like Mike. Let's go ahead and move on to the last movie, and that is the Powerpuff Girls. And that's why the movie didn't make any money, because you slammed it in the middle of the summer with Men in Black 2, Lilo and Stitch, Scooby-Doo, Minority Report, Stuart Little 2 was on the horizon, so, yeah. Warner Brothers pretty much screwed this movie, which coincidentally still happens with animated movies at Warner Brothers to this very day. Hashtag release Coyote versus Acme, but that's a completely different subject altogether. But the Powerpuff Girls movie, Cartoon Network's first attempt at bringing their animated shows to the big screen, and really good movie. Too bad nobody went to go see it the first time. The story, I don't think I really need to tell you, but in the city of Townsville, the frustrated Professor Utonium is gathering all the ingredients to make a perfect little girl. Sugar, spice, everything nice. But when his lab assistant, a monkey named Jojo, causes the accidental addition of chemical X to the mix, the professor ends up with not one but three perfect, powerful little girls. It soon becomes obvious that they're not normal girls. Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup are actually superheroes. They got superpowers and have not yet learned to control them. They're treated like outcasts because they have inadvertently wrecked Townsville in a superpowered game of tag. To win the hearts of the people of Townsville, the girls are tricked into making a deal with Jojo, who plans to take over Townsville. And as the girls foil their threat and defeat an army of superpowered monkeys, they learn that with great power comes great responsibility, because Spider-Man had just come out as well. So, yeah, pretty much the story of the origin story of the Powerpuff Girls on the big screen in a feature-length film, how they first started off as not being liked, how Mojo Jojo basically tricked them to try to turn them over to his side, and how the girls eventually became the superheroes we've come to know them for. It's a generic, basic origin story, but a good origin story, and the movie is just as enjoyable and as entertaining as the original series is. Unlike the Hey Arnold movie, this is definitely a film that, for the most part, is meant for a big screen release. Like, this wasn't a movie that was clearly made for television and blown up for the big screen. They do the best they can to make this a theatrical release, for the most part. The animation overall is good. It's not great. I mean, like, you know, it's on par with the TV show, with a little bit of an aspect where you can tell the animation does go above the normal format of the show. But for the most part, the animation overall is slightly better than the original show is. But, I mean, unlike Hey Arnold the movie, there are so many good elements here that you do kind of just let it slide for what it was trying to accomplish. And the film does a very good job of developing the story that we've heard and seen done over and over again in a way where it fits a feature-length runtime. I mean, the characters are the same way they would eventually become on the TV show. Sometimes the animation can look really good at times, but the action overall is very good. You can tell this film deserves its PG rating because it does get pretty intense and violent at times. Like, not like super violent, but like. Yeah, this is one of those examples where the MPAA probably got it right and should have rated this a PG rating. And I think the film does play out the story well enough where you do see where everyone's coming from. Like, you do see why the people of Townsville would be more than upset about the way that these girls are acting the first time around, because, you know, they completely destroy the town. And it's, like I said, a really fun action sequence that happens when they're playing tag. But yeah, you can definitely see what they're talking about. And I do like how after they play the game, they're basically forced to not use their power, so they have to walk all the way from the school back to home and see all the damage they've caused in like this really great looking scene where like it's completely dark out. You see like all the damage all over the place. Like, this film definitely knew what it was doing, and it works perfectly fine for what it is. I don't know if this was supposed to be the start of something where they hope to bring other animated shows to the big screen, kind of like what DuckTales. I put this in comparison to the DuckTales movie, where like the DuckTales movie was supposed to be the starting point for bringing some of these animated shows to the big screen. Like, I know that a Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers movie was in the works when DuckTales the movie came out, and they were hoping to make a success out of that. And unfortunately, the film didn't do so well, but that's still a great movie too. But we did eventually get a Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers movie. Maybe not the one that everyone wanted, but still a really good one regardless. But I don't know if they plan on doing that with some of the shows that they had at the time. Maybe Samurai Jack, maybe Dexter's Laboratory. I don't know. Johnny Bravo, Cow and Chicken Courage the Cowardly Dog probably would have made an interesting movie. Maybe even Ed and Nettie. Maybe the TV movie they did probably would have made it nice. Toy Boat. Get back to talking. But Ed and Nettie probably could have that TV movie they did at the end of the decade probably could have made it to the big screen had this been a bigger success. But again, you sandwich this between some of the biggest hits of the summer, and the Powerpuff Girls series success was also kind of dipping down at this point. I think someone made a point in an article around that time that the peak of the show's success was in 2000 when, the target audience was about, people over 14 in the summer of 2000. And at that point, it would kind of look like it was dipping down, which kind of makes sense because the show's dipped down in quality, too. Once the show was getting to the end of its run, which the show was never that bad at the end of its run, but especially when you consider it to the reboot they did later on. But the film is a lot of fun, and it's definitely what you want to see in a Powerpuff Girls movie. It's a fun movie that definitely shows that there is a lot there that they wanted to do on the big screen. It's not like the Hey Arnold movie, where the Hey Arnold movie was basically, take this movie that was originally made for television and just blow it up on the big screen. Here, at least, there's effort being put into this one, and I think it still holds up very well to a point where I would say that it's something that you should definitely check out. Is it a cult classic? Is it a great movie by any means? No, it still has a lot of flaws to it, but as a cult film, I think it definitely deserves a following to it. I think it's a well-made film, the Powerpuff Girls movie. Definitely check it out. And so with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. When we meet next time, we'll head into July 12th with 4 movies, including Tom Hanks and Paul Newman in Sam Mendes' Road to Perdition. We also have Matthew McConaughey and Christian Bale in Reign of Fire. Halloween Resurrection, which clearly you need to open a Halloween movie in the middle of summer. You can pretty much tell how that went. But we also have, finally, the Crocodile Hunter, who makes it to the big screen, not in a documentary, but a feature-length film, the Crocodile Hunter Collision Course, and be prepared to be surprised on that one. I mean, it looks like something that you might know where it's going, but prepare to be surprised. But we'll talk about those 4 movies on the next episode. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and I will see you guys next time for another episode. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Until then, take care.